This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Remember back in the 80s when the end of the year meant tuning into those epic countdowns on the radio? Whether it was Casey Kasem with his iconic American Top 40 or Rick Dees bringing the laughs with his countdown hits, there was something magical about hearing the biggest songs of the year celebrated in such a big way. Today we're bringing that same energy as we count down our top 10 episodes of 2024 based on total downloads and listens. So grab your favorite 80s snack, turn up the volume, and let's dive into this year-end countdown on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. I'm Tim Williams, the mastermind behind the mic at the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Joining me on each epic episode is a guest co-host who's as crazy about 80s flicks as they are about wearing parachute pants and solving Rubik's Cubes. We're diving into nostalgic treasures we saw at the local theater, rented on VHS tapes, or discovered on cable TV. From blockbusters that make you say,
I feel the need for speed,
to hidden gems that'll have you screaming,
They're here.
It's a blast to relive these old memories and share our thoughts on what made these movies so special. We reminisce about our first time watch experiences, share our favorite scenes, and even discover fascinating behind the scenes tales about the cast and crew along the way. Haven't hit that subscribe button yet? What are you waiting for?
Come on, do it!
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And hey, while you're at it, be a pal and drop us a written review along with a 5-star rating to tell us what you think about us.
The sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Take a day off and come hang out with us on social media. Just search 80s Flick Flashback on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget to bookmark 80sflickflashback.com for more gnarly content.
Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative.
Want to crank it all the way up to 11? Become a supporter on buymeacoffee.com for only $5 a month.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Click the link in our episode show notes, and while you're there, soak up the extra trivia and fun stuff that didn't make it into today's show. Thanks again for tuning in. Now, let's get right into today's episode.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Well, welcome in, everybody. It's a very special end-of-the-year episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. So glad you're here listening with us. I'm your host, Tim Williams, and no co-host this time. This is going to do this old school, like an old school countdown, like you used to hear on the radio when you were a kid. I would always try to listen to the full countdown with my cassette player and recorder so that I could record all my favorite songs, because I knew the top 40 was going to play the new songs and the songs that I loved. So this doesn't have the same kind of feel because we're talking about movies, but we are going to play some clips from some episodes, and so maybe you'll hear something that you'd forgotten, or you may hear something from an episode that you haven't checked out yet, and we'll encourage you to go back and listen. So it's been an amazing year diving into the movies we all know and love from the greatest decade of all time, the 1980s. Today we're counting down the top 10 episodes of the year based on total downloads and listens on all of the great podcasting platforms we're on, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeart Podcasts, and many more. This is also the first year we posted our episodes on YouTube, so those quote-unquote views are counted as well. I want to take a quick minute and just thank everyone who listens to the podcast. I am still amazed at how many listens we get each month and what episodes seem to resonate the most with a larger audience. Whether you've listened to every episode or only a few, I want to say I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Now, let's get started with the countdown. All right, starting at number 10, we're kicking off our list. Weekend at Bernie's with guest co-hosts Nicholas Pepin and Chad Sheppard. This outrageous comedy starred Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman as two young professionals who discover that their boss, Bernie, is dead. But in classic 80s absurdity, they're forced to pretend he's still alive to avoid trouble with the hitman. It's quirky, slapstick-filled, but it's a fun ride that's a fan favorite for many of us. Let's listen to a short clip from that episode. So, Chad, if someone said Weekend at Bernie's, the first one, not the second one, what's the first scene that you think of?
The waving with the hand. That's
okay.
When he's playing and they're playing Monopoly.
Monopoly, yeah.
He pulls the thing and Bernie just waves.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And one of the scenes that stands out to me is how hot it is in New York in these scenes.
Yeah. They're talking about the heat wave in New York.
Scene,
yeah.
The scene where they're on the roof
Mm-hmm.
with the tar on the roof.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Get tar all over the papers they're looking at. And
that's ink, sir.
Yeah. For iconic scenes, like I don't know if there's any one. I mean, I think the iconic is them carrying him around. Like and there's such a I mean, that's most of the movie. So like it's hard to,
right.
narrow. It's hard to narrow it down and say this one is so. But when I think of Weekend at Bernie's, like basically it's the poster. You know, the two. The, one on one side, one on the other. Bernie kind of slouched over in the middle, you know, and everybody else being too drunk to realize that Bernie's been dead for 3 days.
Right. All right. We got it started. Now let's keep it going. Coming in at number 9, it's time to cut loose and, well, foot loose. This was episode number 105 with J.B. Huffman and Bethany Wells. Kevin Bacon stole our hearts as Ren McCormick, the big city teen who moves to a small town where dancing is illegal. With a killer soundtrack and iconic dance sequences, this film taught us all to cut loose and foot loose. After watching his earlier film Diner, the director Herbert Ross persuaded the producers to go with Bacon. And he told the story that, I guess, Herbert Ross persuaded the producers. So the director, the producers, and the writer all liked him. But whoever the head of the studio didn't think he was quote unquote sexy enough for the lead. And so he had to do like a full screen test. And then they said they did like this 20-minute screen test. The studio head watched like 30 seconds of it and said, okay, you guys can hire him. It's fine with me.
They watched him for 30 seconds and went like, never mind. He's definitely sexy enough.
You're good. Yeah. Kevin Bacon based his hairstyle on rocker Sting's spiky hairdo as he was a big fan of the Police at the time. He mentioned the band in one of the scenes. Where are they? They're right behind you.
They're right behind you.
Such a great episode. All right, moving right along, we've got at number 8 is episode number 98 with J.B. Huffman, where we discuss the thriller No Way Out from 1987. Starring Kevin Costner, Gene Hackman, and Sean Young, this gripping political drama kept us guessing until the very last scene. It's a web of secrets, betrayal, and twists that made for a fantastic episode discussion. Another thing about dating the movie, which I thought was interesting, was when Sam tells Tom that obtaining the credit card records could take a few days. In 1987, most credit card transactions were performed on paper. The embossed details on the credit card were transferred to a carbon paper receipt, which were then submitted to the vendor's bank for tabulation, either manually or using basic OCR scanners. The processing of these charges could take up to a week. Are you old enough to remember the sliding credit card machines?
I just remember them from Home Alone 2. He was at the Plaza Hotel. And like, wow, it worked.
Right. Yeah.
I was probably too young to ever even notice how my parents were paying for things. So
right. Yeah. It's so funny now. We have a debit card. It's so quick now. Interesting. All right, are you having fun so far? I hope so. Don't go anywhere after this quick commercial break. We continue the countdown and find out which episode released in 2024 made it to number 1. And of course, we've got a long distance dedication before this episode's over. You don't want to miss it. Stick around.
And now, these messages.
What's up, dudes? I'm Gerry D of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, books, fashion, and fads.
If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, he's got it covered. Wait, is there a lot of things to talk about for the 80s and Christmas?
Well, you got the movie giants like Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, and A Christmas Story. There are TV specials like Muppet Family Christmas, Claymation Christmas Celebration, and a Garfield Christmas special.
Plus classics shown every year.
You also jam out to Last Christmas, Do They Know It's Christmas, and Christmas in Hollis. But most of all, it was a time for the most bodacious, best-selling Christmas toys ever, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
and Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yes, them too. We cover them all, plus much more, including standard segments like Hap Hap Happiest Memory, Gag Me with the Spoon, The Other Half of the Battle,
and Chant with the Littles.
So tune in to Totally Rad Christmas everywhere you get your podcasts. Turn the clock back and dive into those warm and fuzzy memories.
Later, dudes.
Are you a fan of movies and TV shows inspired by comics? Ready for a podcast that dives deep into the thrilling world of adaptations? Well, look no further. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. This is your go-to podcast for all things comics on screen. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and every Monday we explore the dynamic universe where ink meets action. We break down the classics, reveal hidden gems, and uncover the creative process behind your favorite adaptations. Subscribe to Moving Panels now on your favorite podcast platform and join us on this epic journey through the pages of comics and onto the big screen. Remember, new episodes drop every Monday. Don't miss out. Moving Panels, where every panel has a story and every adaptation is a blockbuster. Subscribe today, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Welcome back. All right, we're counting down the top 10 episodes that were released in 2024, and we've made it to number 7. It's got to be one of my personal favorites. Maybe it's because it isn't about a single movie, but it was a milestone episode, our 100th episode. We decided to do a trivia night that was so much fun with great guests and some challenging questions about the movies we've covered and some that we haven't yet. A huge thank you to everyone who tuned in and celebrated this achievement with us. Here's just a little taste of the hilarity that ensued during the episode. Listen to this.
No, these are really hard.
Just the pressure.
The pressure. I told you.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, you're next on the list for the Brat Pack. Here is your question. How old is Ariel the mermaid in the 1989 Disney movie The Little Mermaid?
Oh, no.
You couldn't ask me about the Goonies, could you?
It's random questions.
I'll trade questions with you.
15 seconds.
I was never a Disney fan. But 10.
That's incorrect. All right, 18. You guys want to steal?
I feel bad because I keep taking, but I know it. I mean, I can
go for it.
Go. Yeah. I believe it's 16.
It is 16.
I'll just say 15. Good job.
The Goonies and the Indiana Jones, I was chomping at the bit over here. I'm like, yes, I could have got those.
All right. Coming in sixth place is actually a replay episode from Totally Rad Christmas with Gerry D. He was gracious enough to let me edit his episode that we did with Nicholas Pepin about Running Scared, the action comedy starring Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines as two Chicago cops on the brink of retirement. With its sharp humor and high-energy chase scenes, this movie is one of the best hidden gems of the decade. Take a listen.
One thing I want to bring up. So Gregory Hines, he scales the outside of the building.
Right.
How?
Right.
that's
yeah. When I saw that, I was like, now why? And it was like, why? Why would he do it that way? Like, what was the whole point?
Yeah, I didn't understand what the point behind him climbing up
like halfway up this random glass building that's apparently exists in Chicago somewhere.
Sure, I don't know. I've only been to Chicago once, so and I flew
I've been a few times, but I don't remember.
I've never actually seen the city, so I just
I don't remember seeing that building, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Chicago's a big city.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, we are halfway through the countdown. And at number 5, we've got a bonus episode about one of my favorite forgotten 80s flicks, The Money Pit. Tom Hanks and Shelley Long gave us endless laughs as a couple attempting to renovate their dream home, only to face hilarious disasters at every turn. If you've ever tackled a home improvement project, this one's especially relatable. Here's a clip where guest co-host Gerry D learns that this was actually a remake.
It was based on H.C. Potter's Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, starring Cary Grant and Myrna Loy. The original film holds the number 72 spot on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Laughs list.
I didn't know that either. I was reading that too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It makes me want to like go back and watch that because that's like such a beloved classic, I guess. But I'd never seen it. My mom loves this movie. It's called My Two Wives, which is I think it's also Cary Grant and Myrna Loy.
Okay.
So I know that their chemistry, like as a duo, is really good. So I kind of want to check it out, but yeah, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
All right, we're getting to near the end, and coming in at number 4, it's episode number 122, Splash, with guest co-hosts Ben Carpenter and Bethany Wells. This romantic fantasy comedy starred Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah in a love story that's truly out of the ordinary. A man falls in love with a mermaid, leading to charming and heartfelt moments. The movie also co-starred the late, great John Candy. Here's a clip of us talking about how much we love the chemistry between John Candy and Tom Hanks.
Thinking back on this movie before I rewatched a couple years ago, I might have forgotten that John Candy was in this movie. Like I remembered Tom Hanks. I remembered Daryl Hannah. I think I remembered Eugene Levy because he's, the bad guy, but I forgot that John Candy played his brother. And he's not in that movie a whole lot, but
boy, is he loud when he is.
Yeah. He's memorable when he's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I that's what struck me as the funniest this time watching it again, were the scenes just between Hanks and John Candy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where I mean, it was just some really good writing, and they both just made it really funny. And
they had.
I
good
had just
chemistry.
forgotten how.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was just saying they have good chemistry.
Oh yes, yeah, and then I thought I had the same thought. I was like, I thought that word, they have good chemistry on screen together, and then I thought, well, they did they work together again? I couldn't remember, and I looked it up, and as you said, Volunteers. Yeah, that was the only other time they worked together, and that one I remember going to see that one in the theater too, and coming out disappointed. Like, it's not awful, but it's also
not
just
great.
It's not Splash.
Yeah,
it's not as good as
All right, before we go any further with the countdown, I think it's time for a long distance dedication. This one comes to us from Sarah in Denver, Colorado. Sarah writes, Dear 80s Flick Flashback, back in 1987, I was just starting to date the man who would later become my husband. One of our first dates was a spur-of-the-moment decision to see a little movie called Inner Space. I'll never forget how nervous I was, wondering if he'd hold my hand during the movie. The movie was perfect, funny, adventurous, and sweet, just like him. We laughed at Martin Short's antics, rooted for Dennis Quaid's heroics, and marveled at Meg Ryan's beauty. But the real magic happened during the big climax when he finally reached over and held my hand. My heart raced faster than a miniaturized sub through a bloodstream. 36 years later, we're still holding hands through life's adventures, laughs, and challenges. Whenever we watch Inner Space, it reminds us of that first spark and how far we've come since then. So, could you dedicate this one to my husband, the man who makes every day feel like a wild, wonderful ride? Well, Sarah, that's a love story worthy of the silver screen. Here's to the start of something beautiful, sparked by a movie filled with heart and adventure. May you both continue to hold hands and create memories for years to come. Now, here's a clip from Inner Space, just for you.
You know what's going on. on here. You read the note.
Yeah, I read the note. Good. Nice, clean break. Leave everything behind.
I don't live here.
A one-nighter? Will you shut up? Get back in your cab, will you? Yeah, I read the note. Your standard farewell address. I know it by heart.
Excuse me.
Lydia, look, don't leave. You know you love me, huh? Look, I know you're crazy about me. I mean, look, in a week or two, I'm gonna call you. You're gonna call me. We're gonna be back together.
No, we won't.
I don't get it. I get a little drunk. I make an ass out of myself. What's the big deal?
Things are different now, Tuck. It just hurts me too much to be with you.
Lydia, I stubbed my toe on the cab when I kicked the door. I think it's broken.
Well, better your toe than your heart. Right? Can we go now, please?
Lydia! Lydia!
All right, we only have 3 more episodes left in the countdown. When we return from this commercial break, we will announce the #1 episode, and we'll also share a few episodes that just barely missed the top 10 list. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
And now, these messages.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from 3 nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
Hey there, fellow 80s movie aficionados. Are you ready to embark on a nostalgia-filled journey to the greatest era of cinema? Then look no further than the Retro Life for You 80s Movie Podcast. Join us every week as we rewind the VHS tapes, dust off those Betamax classics, and dive headfirst into the neon-soaked, totally tubular world of the 1980s movies. From the Brat Pack to action heroes, we've got it all covered. Breakfast Club, Ghostbusters, E.T. and Indiana Jones, and more. It's like a trip in Doc Brown's time machine, but without the DeLorean. So whether you're a die-hard 80s film buff or just curious about the cinematic gems of the past, Retro Life for You is your ticket to the ultimate movie time warp. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Retro Life for You, and we can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast, as well as on our website, www.retrolife4u.com.
Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for adults with migraine with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents, on average, 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Ask your doctor and visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
All right, it's time to find out which episodes made it into the top 3 spots. Here we go. Coming in at number 3, it's Poltergeist. Ben Carpenter and Bethany Wells were the guest co-hosts for episode number 121 during our spooky season of October. This Steven Spielberg-produced PG-rated horror classic terrified and captivated audiences with its tale of a suburban family haunted by mysterious spirits. From the iconic line, "They're here," to the unforgettable special effects, this movie gave us plenty to talk about.
So we'll start with Ben. When did you see Poltergeist for the very first time?
I saw it in theaters.
Oh,
I
wow.
was 9 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And some mean adult in my life took me to see it. I mean, it was, like you said, it was rated PG.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it was a Steven Spielberg produced movie,
right.
At least I'm sure
Right.
we'll get to that, but
Mm-hmm.
and so they assumed that I was not going to be scarred for life, and I mean, I don't remember being scarred. I don't think I was scarred by it, but there were definitely some scenes in it where, I'm sure I had some sleepless nights as a child, remembering them.
All right, Bethany, when did you see this one for the first time?
Way too young. But I remember it being on. It was probably one of those like HBO free weekends. My parents, recorded it on a VHS and then we just had it forever. And I don't know. I just loved this movie as a kid for some unexplained reason. I am not a horror movie person at all. And so the fact that I was really into this movie, I know I watched it many times as a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can't explain why.
The runner-up spot goes to episode 119, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, with guest co-hosts Nicholas Pepin, Chad Sheppard, and Laramy Wells. The iconic duo of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter took us on a hilarious time-traveling journey to ace their history presentation. It's a most excellent movie that always leaves fans declaring, "Party on, dudes."
For me, it's the jailbreak of them constantly going, "Gotta remember to do this, gotta remember to do that," and they're just making things happen. Which I'm assuming is what's supposed to be the case for the project, like how they got all the lights and everything. It had to have been them saying, "Let's remember to go back and set this up."
Yes, that I have a note about that at the end where the writers said that people asked them like who ran the lights and how did they have all that stuff done, and they said that in their minds they would have gotten other time versions of themselves. Like Bill and Ted were actually running the lights for present Bill and Ted, and they said they wish that they would have filmed that so that it would have been more predominant or more known, that it wasn't such a mystery. But yeah.
All right, we've come to the number 1 episode, but before we get there, I want to shout out some honorable mention episodes. These 3 episodes just barely missed making it into the top 10 episodes released in 2024. First on the list is the bonus episode from October about Night of the Comet with Chris Adams and star of the movie, Catherine Mary Stewart. It was such an honor and joy to spend some time with Catherine and have her share some wonderful stories about making the movie. Next is episode 109, Mr. Mom, was the episode we did with Ben Carpenter. It was another fun episode that just missed being in the top 10. And the first episode released in 2024, number 98, Spies Like Us, with Laramy Wells, had a lot of downloads and listens as well. So I wanted to add it to the honorable mention list as well. All right, let's get to the number 1 episode released in 2024. Do you know what it is? Any guesses? Let's find out. Starring the 2 Coreys, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, this teen comedy about the misadventures of a boy who fails his driver's test but sneaks out with the family car anyway was your favorite episode of the year. It's the perfect blend of humor, nostalgia, and chaos. Episode 102, License to Drive, with guest co-host Nicholas Pepin.
The scene at the beginning, did it bring back memories of Nightmare on Elm Street 2 Freddy's dead.
Absolutely. I had to look it up to see which one came first because I couldn't remember. And I was like, yeah, there's no way that they didn't see Freddy's dead or whatever Freddy movie that
Freddy's
was.
Revenge, I think.
Freddy's Revenge, Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and go, we can do that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, there's a dream sequence. He's on the bus. The bus is out of control. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. And I've seen this recently because I've watched Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 in the last year. So I was like, did they really just steal that, or is it just a weird coincidence?
I don't know. I mean, but there's no way that there wasn't some sort of liberal borrowing.
We've seen this done before. Let's just change it a little bit.
I'm so glad that you saw it as well, and it wasn't just me.
Well, there you have it, the top 10 episodes of the 80s Flick Flashback in 2024. Thank you all for your support this year, for listening, sharing, and making this podcast such a joy to create. I'm excited for what's to come in 2025, so stay tuned, stay awesome, and as always, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Until next time, I'm Tim Williams, and this is 80s Flick Flashback Podcast.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.